laughing too.
Hey guys, welcome to Tale of Two Dead Girls. I am your host, Kayla.
And I'm your host, Kale.
And this is our episode number 15.
Woo!
Yeah, so we, I don't know if we said this in the last episode, but we are going to be doing our episodes once every 2 weeks. I can't remember if we talked about it. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think we did, but it's a good refresher.
Yeah, so every 2 weeks. And then, also we are still wanting your stories. We have a few of them still. We just haven't created Morbid Mini episode yet. So keep them coming. Send us your spooky haunted stories or small town murder stories or, anything that is interesting and spooky. So we want to read them.
Yes, send us your scary stories. We love to get spooked shitless.
Yes. Oh my god, we haven't said that in a while.
I know, we got to bring it back. It's making a comeback. 2020, baby.
Spooked shitless. So, you can send your emails to taleoftwodeadgirls@gmail.com. So with that, also, actually, I don't think we said who did our new logo. So we do have a new logo. If you noticed in, when you're listening to our episode, you'll see a new picture. So our girl Melanie created that for us. She was amazing to work with. And her Instagram is Gray Days Girl, Gray with an E. So go check out her work. She does tons of cute artwork and she's just amazing. So thank you, Melanie, for creating such a perfect logo photo or whatever it's called for us. We love it so much.
Yeah, it's seriously perfect. It looks just like us. She took we gave her multiple ideas and she had no problem doing multiple sketches for us and sending us mock-ups and changing every little detail that we wanted to. She was super sweet. So if you need anything drawn up and you like her style, definitely hit her up. So Kayla, how's your creativity going this week? What you got going on your Etsy?
So I actually added some earrings. So I'm doing wooden circle earrings and different types of styles, but they're made from wood, and then I paint them black. Because me, all black everything all the time.
Black is the best.
Yes, and I also started on my third wall hanging commission, so it's been nice to actually be getting commissions back to back. So that's really nice. And then I did finish up some pin boards, and I actually sold one of my favorite ones, which was the Victorian house looking one. It was kind of small.
I loved that.
I know, I couldn't believe how fast it got sold, and I'm so thankful for it. Those frames are very, very hard to come by, so I'm on the hunt for them though. I want more of them in the shop, so if you guys are interested in seeing what I'm talking about, just check out my Etsy. It's by Kayla Christine with K's .etsy.com, and that's kind of what I've been doing as far as my creativity-ness.
That's awesome. You could also try checking thrift stores or something to find antique frames, that kind of thing. I think that'd be awesome.
That's where I have been finding most of my frames. But there's since I live kind of in a small town that's spread out, I've kind of already hit up all the places, and it's a very slow paced place here, so it's kind of hard to get new things. Everything is kind of the same all the time.
I feel that. Well, I've been just working on my drawing. You guys saw my little Pennywise Valentine that I drew, and I hope you guys loved it. It's super cute. I'm working on a few other drawings, and I have an art Instagram, but it's not very poppin' yet, but you can check that out. It's Weary X Bones, but yeah, I only have 3 things up right now, but gotta plug myself.
They're super cute. This week in our episode, Kale is going first. So I'm excited for me not to go first. So go ahead.
Okay, guys, I've got a pretty crazy story for you this week. Unfortunately, I realized after I decided the topic that it's going to be another child murder. So don't think I'm some weirdo that likes children getting murdered, please. um, but I wanted to talk about the killer Andre Rand, or also known as Cropsey. Growing up, everyone had a boogeyman as a child. You know, some of us were scared of monsters under our beds or the creepy tree outside of your window at night. But the children in Staten Island, New York, were told tales of a boogeyman. And this boogeyman was supposedly an escaped mental patient who lived in the abandoned Willowbrook mental institution. Children were told by their parents that he would come out late at night and snatch children off the streets if they weren't where they were supposed to be. There were two versions of the boogeyman that children remember, and one was where he had a hook for a hand, and the other is where he's just wielding a bloody axe.
Wait, the hash slinging slasher.
The hash bringing.
The hash bringing flasher? Or what does he say?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
This boogeyman was called Cropsey. Everything changed in the summer of 1987 when 7-year-old Jennifer went missing, and everyone in Staten Island realized that the urban legend was real, that real-life boogeyman was Andre Rand. So Andre Rand was born as Frank Rushan in 1943. He grew up in Ithaca, New York, and he served in the army during the 1960s. Throughout his life, crime seemed to follow him. In 1969, he was arrested in South Bronx. Trigger warning, there is some sexual assault in these. But he was arrested in South Bronx for kidnapping and attempting to rape a 9-year-old girl.
Oh, man.
He pled guilty to a lesser charge of sexual assault, and this piece of trash only spent 16 months in prison.
Why does that happen? I don't understand.
He was paroled in 1972, and in 1979, he was accused of raping a young woman and a 15-year-old girl, but unfortunately, neither of them ended up pressing charges.
Why? For why? Well, actually, no, I kind of get why, because a lot of people who have,
Yeah.
been, sexually assaulted don't press charges, and it's sad how
well, and
fucking common it is, too.
Back in that time, it was, it was a rough time for women. I mean, it still is, but,
Even rougher time, right?
Yeah. Rand worked many odd jobs. He was mostly a transient and lived in like rooming houses, shelters, and makeshift campsites. He's most known for his job position at the Willowbrook Mental Institution. So there's conflicting information about this. Some articles say that he worked as a physical therapist aide, and other articles and sources say that he was a custodian. So I don't know if he did kind of like both, or he did one or the other. But I wanted to throw both of them in there because it was kind of unclear. But he worked there from 1966 to 1968, and around this time is when he actually legally changed his last name to Rand. He started going by Andre after his first prison stint. So after Willowbrook was shut down for poor treatment of patients, he lived in makeshift campsites and inside of the abandoned hospital buildings. So when parents were telling their children about like some crazy escaped mental patient that lived in these buildings, it was like true. Like he lived there.
That's insane.
Yeah. And there were like a ton of underground tunnels, and just like it's just a really creepy place. But the victims of Andre Rand is what I'm going to get into next. And the first one that he's suspected of is in 1972. Rand was working as a painter in South Beach, Staten Island at an apartment house. This is when 5-year-old Alice Piera went missing. Alice was playing with her brother in the lobby of the building, and when her brother returned, she was gone. Rand was a suspect because, again, he was working in that same apartment complex as a painter, and unfortunately, police did not have enough evidence to pursue an arrest at the time. And 9 years later, in 1981, Rand was taken in for questioning on the disappearance of 7-year-old Holly Ann Hughes. Holly did not return home after going to the store to buy a bar of soap with her friend. Her friend stated that Rand pulled up to her and Holly and pulled Holly into his Volkswagen and drove off with her.
Fuck.
Yeah, several other eyewitnesses saw this happen, but once again, he was released for lack of evidence.
I
Like,
hate
the
that.
cops had nothing on him other than eyewitness. Yeah, and the girl that was with her was only 6, so she couldn't really say much at the time, or
Right.
she wasn't really like a reliable source.
Yeah.
So in 1983, Rand loaded up 11 children from West Brighton into a van without parental permission. He drove them 5 hours to Newark with the children.
Newark, like New Jersey?
I believe
I've
so.
been there. I've been to the airport.
Yeah. So that's a funny thing. So he drove 5 hours with the children and spent the day eating hamburgers and watching the planes land at the Newark airport.
Bitch.
Yeah.
Oh my god, we've been at the same airport.
So none of the children were harmed, but he was arrested on charges of unlawful imprisonment and sentenced to only 10 months in jail, and he was back on the streets once again. But
BS.
it's like, this guy was ballsy to just take 11 children and be like, all right, let's go on a trip. Like, what?
That's so creepy.
Yeah.
But he didn't harm them, right? That's what you said? He didn't
No,
harm
he
them?
didn't hurt them at all. He just bought them hamburgers and they watched the planes land and then he just drove them back home.
Maybe he was just like really into having kids and he didn't have any. Did he have any kids?
No, not that I found.
Oh, yeah. Maybe he just
We'll get into it
was
though. There's some
lonely.
conspiracies.
Got it.
So in August of 1983, only 12 days after he was released from prison, Rand was a suspect in the disappearance of 11-year-old Thais Jackson. Thais's mother had sent her to purchase chicken from a store and she did not return. She was last seen exiting the Mariners Harbor Hotel in Staten Island, where her and her siblings lived with their mother. At the time, Rand was staying in a campsite that was less than half a mile from the motel, and Thais's mother said she had seen a man matching his description around the parking lot prior to her going missing. In 1984, Hank Gaffario was reported missing after he did not return home one night. Gaffario was described as being slower. He had an IQ in the 70s, and at the time of his disappearance, he was 22. So he was quite a bit older than, his other victims. But the reason why they think that he may have had a part in his disappearance is because he was last seen with Rand at a local diner early in the morning hours before he went to, missing.
Aww.
So, as I said in the beginning, everything changed when Jennifer went missing. In 1987, Jennifer Schwieger went missing from her home in Westerly. Jennifer was a 12-year-old girl and she had Down syndrome. Rand was the prime suspect in her disappearance because witnesses say that they saw Jennifer walking with him and then saw her being led into the woods with him.
No.
Yeah, the search for her body lasted 35 days and it ended tragically when her body was found in a shallow grave on the Willowbrook property. So, retired New York City firefighter George Kramer was the one that found her in a search, and he said that all he saw was a tiny foot coming out of the ground.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he said there's no way that he'll ever be able to unsee that, and that was heartbreaking for him. But Jennifer's body was within sight of Rand's...
Jennifer's body?
Yeah.
Like,
so
Jennifer's body.
I know. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make a joke.
No, you're good. So her body was within sight of Rand's lean-to makeshift camp because, again, he lived on the Willowbrook abandoned property. So when her body was found, this finally gave police the break that they needed to nail Rand. The police charged him with murder and kidnapping. Unfortunately, the jury was unable to come to a verdict on the murder charge because of lack of evidence, but they were able to convict him of first-degree kidnapping because of the witness sightings and because of how she was so close to his camp. So he was convicted of first-degree kidnapping in 1988, and although at the time of Holly Ann Hughes' disappearance, he was convicted of her kidnapping in 2004, 23 years later. So thankfully, there is no statute of limitations in Staten Island, New York for first-degree kidnapping. So they were able to convict him for her kidnapping as well.
Thank God.
Yeah, so he won't be eligible for parole until 2037 when he's 93 years old.
2037? When he's 93 years old?
Yeah, so good fucking riddance.
He's gonna be dead before he gets that age, hopefully.
One can only hope. So, out of all of the five victims, unfortunately, only Jennifer's body was ever found. Again, he is the main suspect still in all of these disappearances because he was close to the victims or he was like in the same area. But unfortunately, without their bodies, we really don't know what's happened to them. But a lot of people believe that they're still just buried somewhere on the Willowbrook state property.
So he never confessed?
No, he claims that he is innocent still to this day. Like
Ew, I hate
he
that.
completely claims that he's totally innocent, that he had nothing to do with any of the disappearances, that he never saw Jennifer, like he never saw any of these children.
What if he was
But
framed?
yeah, I mean, I've got some conspiracies,
Oh, right.
but yeah, so I wanted to kind of go into the Willowbrook Mental Institution a little bit. So the Willowbrook Mental Institution was also known as the Willowbrook State School. It was opened in 1947 and it was a state supported institution for children with intellectual disabilities. The school was built for 4,000 people, but by 1969 it had reached its peak capacity of 6,200 patients.
Fuck.
Yeah, so over what they were built for, but it was the largest mental institution in the United States and hosted some of the most disgusting and deplorable living conditions. In 1972, Geraldo Rivera was working for the TV station WABC, and he ended up doing a news report on the school that kind of went viral at the time, if you will.
Viral.
um, yeah, so he basically he pretended to work for the hospital and he basically snuck in and filmed the horrible conditions. You guys, like when I say be careful watching this, like if you want to look it up, we'll put the link in, but it is extremely hard to watch. Like it made me sick to my stomach and I only watched a small clip of it,
Fuck.
but
Mm.
children were seen crying, moaning, rocking back and forth. Most of them were naked. They were dirty. They were covered in their own feces and urine. There were videos of the children being fed, and it looked like they were just shoving like food down their throats. They
Oh.
were just being treated like extremely horrible. There's a lot of reports of like sexual assault and just horrible, horrible, horrible living conditions that nobody in their right mind should live in, but definitely not somebody who's more vulnerable. It was disgusting.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Poor,
Yeah.
poor kids.
Yeah. And so the video, it shocked America, but sadly, even after it was released, the institution remained open until 1987. So, it was still open for a really long time. The school claimed that they were taking action and like getting better staff, and they rehomed a bunch of the patients there, but it stayed open for way too long, in my opinion. So in 1993, the College of Staten Island took over 200 acres of the area and they built their campus there. The remaining area is still owned by the New York Department of Mental Hygiene, and the original abandoned buildings are all still standing.
Wow.
So, yeah, so students of the College of Staten Island have reported seeing like scary figures moving through the shadows, strange noises, calls, and unsettling feelings of something watching over you or following you. There's reports of unearthly howls in the night, and yeah, that place is just fucked, I'm pretty sure.
I wonder if there's like videos on YouTube of people like exploring it, or maybe like maybe like ghost adventures or taps from ghost hunters have like done a thing
Yeah,
at their
that's
place at that place.
there probably have been. I honestly didn't look into that. I should have, but that would be interesting to look up and make sure it's like see if that's happened
I'm gonna check.
because yeah, the fact that this place is just still standing, like the buildings are standing, the tunnels have supposedly been blocked off, but you never know, honestly. It's all like public or private property, so you're not supposed to go on there like you're trespassing if you do, but
Right.
I would still do it.
Yeah.
Only in the daytime though, because I'm a wuss.
Oh my god.
So there are a few conspiracies kind of tied to this. Some people think that Rand is totally innocent. Um, some people think that he was framed because at the time there was reported that there was unnamed and unlocated satanic cult in the
Oh
area.
bitch.
Yeah, so Some people think that it was actually the satanic cult that was kidnapping these children and sacrificing them, and Rand just took the fall for it. Others believe that Rand kidnapped these children and sold them or gave them over to the satanic cult for the rituals or, things like that, or sacrifices. Um, there's also another like speculation because Rand's mother was actually in a mental institution as well when he was a child, like growing up. Some people think that because of that and because of him working at the Willowbrook State School, that he saw how horrible it was and that he thought that people, like, it's kind of hard to put this in a way, but some people believe that he felt like he was putting those children out of their misery because almost all of the children had some type of disability. All of them except for Alice and Holly. But Thais Jackson had a lot of medical issues, and Hank Gaffario, he was a little bit of a slower person, and Jennifer Swigger had Down syndrome. So some people think that he felt like he was taking them out of their misery kind of thing, which is
Wow.
totally fucked up, like
Yeah.
not justified whatsoever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so some people think that he thought he was doing something good
Like,
because he saw how
wow.
these children
What
were
a
suffering.
hero.
Yeah, no, he's horrible. But other people think that Rand and other homeless or mentally handicapped people participated in taking turns with the children,
Oh no.
because because at the abandoned ground, so when the Willowbrook school shut down, a lot of people were rehomed, but some of the patients were just left to fend for themselves, like they couldn't find a home for them, and it was speculated that some of them still lived on the grounds as homeless people in the abandoned building. And that's kind of where the Cropsey boogeyman came from, is because parents were telling their children that so they didn't go there, or so that they would listen and come inside at night. Staten Island is kind of a dangerous place sometimes. So one thing I wanted to point out, I got a lot of my information from the documentary called Cropsey.
Okay.
That's Cropsey, so definitely watch that. It's basically how the story like got so much attention and like so popular is because these two people from Staten Island who remembered hearing about the boogeyman, at Willowbrook State School, actually realized that he was real after being told this story as children. So they do this documentary on it and they explore the building, and it's just really interesting. It's got so much good information, and they did a really good job filming it. It's a little bit older. I think it's like early or mid 2000s, but it held up for its age, and
Yeah.
they interview all of the detectives and things like that. So it's definitely worth checking out.
Wow. Where can you find that?
So I watched it for free on YouTube, but you can also buy it if you want to support them.
Right.
I think it's on Amazon. You should be able to buy it. They have a website too. Yeah, you can buy it like at Walmart, Amazon, probably any online streaming, honestly. But I think it used to be on Netflix, but it's not anymore because that's where I checked first.
Got it.
So that's my story. I hope you guys liked it. Yeah.
That's some shit. Like I say after every time I hear someone's story or your story, whatever, I'm just like, that's some shit. But
yeah, it was.
That really sucks. Like, so if he did commit, all of those murders, like, fuck him, he can burn in hell. But like, imagine if he actually didn't. Like, that, I always think about that. Like, people who claim to be innocent, it's like nobody ever actually knows but that person. So people always like, whatever. And so it's always just like, what if they actually are innocent? Like, that fucking sucks to be like stuck in prison for all these, for like the rest of their life for something they actually didn't do. And it's just that it's like, it's so awful. I wish like lie detector tests were like 100% accurate, so you don't have to like go through the whole interrogation. Just bring them into the fucking lie detector thing and be like, hey, did you commit this crime? They say yes and they pass, and great. If they say no and they don't pass, and like, whatever. It's just, I wish it was just that fucking easy, but it's not.
I know. Yeah, when I was like doing it, I was like, you know what, he did this. But then after I read the conspiracies, I was kind of like, what if he didn't do it? Like, what if he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, like every single
Wait,
time?
but then that's a whole lot of fucking times.
Yeah, like that's the
So,
thing is that it is a lot of times. And so like there was this one part in Cropsey, the documentary, where the detectives talked about how they thought that they were going to get him to confess. And so they pulled him into a room and they like had him watch the video that Geraldo took of the children. And they said that he like was acting totally fine, totally normal. And then they started playing that video. And again, it's just horrible footage of like children just running around crazy, like rocking back and forth. It's straight up like out of a horror movie. But they said
damn.
that he just like zoned out and started drooling and that he didn't speak for like 3 days after that, I
Oh
believe.
my god.
I didn't write it down, so don't quote me, but
Maybe he was
it's in the
possessed.
yeah, so it's like in the documentary. So some of the detectives were like, we think he did this, but like he got fucked up from working at that school. Like all, like the staff, they were severely understaffed. And I'm sure, trust me, that there were staff that they were not doing their job and abusing these children, but there were probably some that were genuinely trying to do their job and just couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but yeah, when he saw the footage of it, he totally like there's a picture of him being carried out by two detectives and he just has his head down and he's just drooling.
Ew, gross.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, good one. That was all in New York, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was great. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to, before I share my story, I wanted to share a friend's song. He came out with a, I don't know, like a EP or album or whatever this thing is called. He put it out on SoundCloud. It's called Dirty Main Volume 1, and I think there's 10 tracks on there. They're all super good. So I'm gonna play just a part of it. His name is Dirty Mike, so you can find Dirty Mike on SoundCloud or on Instagram. It's Dirty X Mike. So here it is. So that's part of the song, which I honestly really love it. It sounds really good. So go check him out, support him. His music should be up on Spotify by the time this comes out. This episode comes out. So yeah, go check him out. So now I want to get into my story.
I'm so excited.
So I'm gonna be talking about a mass demonic possession. And this happened at a convent chapel of the Hospitaller Sisters of St. Louis and St. Elizabeth. And this case is known as the Louviers possessions. This was actually the third reported case of demonic possession in the 17th century in France specifically. So this one takes place in a commune in France called Louviers, and I didn't know what a commune was, so I googled it, and the definition says that it's a group of people living together and sharing possessions and responsibilities. And the second definition, the smallest French territorial division of or for administrative purposes. So, anyways, in 1642, so forever ago, 18 nuns became possessed, and it all started with Sister Madeleine Bove. So, some of these, well, like all of these names, I think, are French. So sorry if I don't pronounce them correctly. I did try to look them up. So Madeleine was born in 1607 and she was an orphan. At age 12, she was bound as an apprentice to a linen worker whose business was dependent on the church patronage. It's believed that he drugged the apprentices with something like Atropa belladonna, and that is also known as deadly nightshade. and led them to believe that he was taking them to a Sabbath where he sexually abused Madeline and 3 other apprentices.
Oh my god. That's horrible.
When she was 16, she entered a hospitaller convent, which I think is a knight. Like a hospitaller was a knight, so like a community of knights, I guess. Um, so, anyways, this convent was in the woods just outside of Louviers, and Father David, who was the elderly supervisor, was apparently an Adamite, preaching the nudity Adam, as in Adam and Eve, practiced in his innocence. But Madeline declined to submit, so, quote, to submit to this strange way of living. And Father David's death was in 1628, and he was replaced with Father Matherin Pickard and Thomas Bull. And also, I do want to mention that the timeline for this was very confusing. So bear with me if any of this kind of confuses you.
Yeah, that
um,
was a long time ago.
yeah. And it's kind of hard for everything to get, like, for everyone to get their story straight or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So Pickard appointed her sacristan, pursued her with amorous intentions and magic potions, and even made Madeline pregnant. But I didn't read anything that had to do with her and a baby, so I don't know what happened to that pregnancy. But for years, the nuns had lived a life of extreme severity. They fasted to the point of starvation, flagellated, which means to flog someone, either as a religious discipline or for sexual gratification, and mutilated themselves by way of penance, which means voluntary self punishment inflicted as an outward expression of repentance for having done wrong, and spent nights in prayer without sleep. They then started acting hysterically. They were unable to focus on prayer, cursing, and blaspheming against God, and going so far as to destroy the sacrament when it was offered to them.
Damn.
They they hallucinated at night, and their screams were so loud that it disturbed not only the rest of the convent but the nearby town as well.
Oh my god, so they were just real loud.
They were real loud, yeah.
And this is like before Slayer, came out and
Eh.
everything. No, I'm just kidding.
In 1625, as Sister Madeline was 18 years old, she claimed to have been bewitched by Matherin Pickard and Father Thomas Bull. She confessed to authorities that the 2 clergymen abducted her and took her to a black mass at midnight where she married the devil. They called him Dagon, and she had sex with him and the 2 men on the altar. So while the orgy was taking place, babies were supposedly strangled and eaten, and 2 men were crucified and disemboweled.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's just so like really scary to imagine.
Yeah. So wait, so they're saying, so she's saying that it was the new priest or father that like kind of led this?
Yes,
Oh my god. So he was like a fake prophet.
pretty much.
Wow.
Um, so while most of her testimony was rooted in the supernatural, she also said that Father David, the Adamite guy, had encouraged the sisters to go to Mass naked so they could mimic the purity present at the Garden of Eden, but in practice, so he could encourage them into lesbian affairs. She explained the ways in which they had pleasured each other, which had extended to using the crucifix as an aid during sex. These were the only accusations levied against Father David and seemed to have had an element of truth in them, given that he was known to have preached in the nude himself.
Wow. So like a nudist colony church.
It's a interesting one. Um,
Love to see it.
so her confession prompted the investigation, and they found out that between 1628 and 1642, the other nuns reported that they had been taken to those black masses by Pickard and Bull, where they would have sex with demons, like different demons and Dagon. which was the devil, like the actual devil. Also, I read that he was like disguised as like a cat or something, like a big black cat, but I only saw that in
Oh.
like in like one source, so I don't know how true that is. But the confessions were accompanied by what investigators believed were classic signs of demonic possessions. Those signs included contortions, which is extreme physical flexibility, unnatural body movements, speaking in tongues, obscene insults, blasphemies, and the appearance of strange wounds that would quickly vanish. The nuns were able to contort themselves unnaturally, could support their body weight upon their head, and remain in that position for hours. They succumbed to fainting spells, but after all of these instances, they were found to be calm and collected, with no physical symptoms that something was wrong. They could run at great speed without getting out of breath. They displayed great agility by climbing onto rooftops and trees. And on one occasion, this one was like really fucking creepy. Um, a sister was thrown into a fire by her demon only to emerge unscathed with no evidence of her ever being burned.
Dude, that is so. I can't even imagine if I saw that, like what I would do. Wait, so how many of them were there?
There were 18
Oh my
nuns.
god.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, I was thinking like 5, but can you imagine just like 18 nuns like sprinting at you full speed?
That's why they were so loud too, like because
Yeah,
there were
if
so
they're
many of them.
all like howling, that is so fucking scary. Imagining that sound gives me full body chills. Like I do not like that.
It's so fucking terrifying. And you know the weird thing is like when I was doing this research, I did it like at night and not once did I get scared, which is weird because I'm terrified of anything that has to do with fucking possessions and it is not my favorite subject and I fucking hate it and I tried to, you know, avoid this kind of topic, but I found it super interesting because of all
Yeah,
the
the story was just too juicy.
yeah, exactly. The exorcisms at Louviers were a public spectacle. Almost every single person at the exorcisms was questioned by the inquisitors, and the whole town of Louviers began showing symptoms of hysteria as the cries of the nuns who were undergoing the exorcisms rose with the screams of Father Bull, who was tortured at the time. During the exorcisms, the sisters had to confess further evidence against Pickard and Bull. In addition to tempting them into sexual acts, Satan, in the form of Pickard and Bull, supposedly, had tried leading the nuns down the road of heresy. I think it's heresy or heresy. And heresy or heresy is the belief or opinion contrary to Orthodox religious doctrine. Um, the devil appeared to the nuns as a beautiful angel and engaged them in theological conversations so clever that they even began to doubt their own teachings. They told him that everything he was teaching them was not what they had learned before, and Satan replied that he was just a messenger of heaven who was sent to reveal fatal errors in what was otherwise accepted dogma. And dogma is a principle or set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I did give you guys a lot of definitions because there's a lot of things in here that I was like, I'll just tell y'all what this means just in case you already don't know because there's some things I didn't know, so helping you out here. So they also revealed that at the Black Mass, they had committed extensive acts of perversion with the priests, demons, each other, and when they were not engaged in the acts themselves, they watched the priests fornicate with the demons. So lots of
Damn.
sex in this church here. Signs of demonic possession continued throughout the exorcisms. One witness wrote that they saw a nun, quote, run with movements so abrupt that it was difficult to stop her. One of the clerics present, having caught her by the arm, was surprised to find that it did not prevent the rest of her body from turning over and over as if the arm were fixed to the shoulder merely by a spring.
Oh
That's
no.
spooky as hell. Like, that is a
That's so
nightmare. I do
scary.
not ever want to see that ever in my life. Like, That's
Yeah.
fucking terrifying.
Like, you know that part in Get Out when that guy's like running full speed towards that other guy?
I
Did you
don't.
watch Get Out?
Yeah, I did, but I don't
Oh,
remember.
okay. Well, he's like running full speed towards this guy. Like his arms are like in full running motion
Oh,
and it is so
wait, but
scary. I just like
doesn't he like pass by him?
yeah, he like turns at the last second, but it's still just like as he's running towards him, it's so scary. And
Yeah.
I just picture like that, but a nun, and
Ew.
it's just like a million times scarier.
Ew, yeah. Oh god. Okay,
Yeah.
now
But like with the nun face from like, the nun.
that's literally exactly what I was just thinking, and I keep looking over my shoulder because now I'm getting
I
scared.
know.
Uh,
Valak.
where's my blanket to cover me? Okay, so anyways, okay, so attempts at exorcism were made, and the Bishop of Evreux, which is a French name, and I'm not French, so I'm not saying it like a French person, so sorry. Um, investigated the convent for witchcraft. The exorcisms were public and became more of a circus than a holy ritual. And as hysteria rose, it seemed pretty inevitable that a trial would occur and Father Bull's fate would be sealed. But during the exorcisms, Parliament at Evreux passed 3 sentences. So Sister Madeline Bave, or Bav, whatever the fuck, I'm so sorry, I forgot her name, was charged with sorcery, witchcraft, and making a pact with the devil. She confessed and was expelled from the order and sentenced to life in the church underground dungeon with only bread and water 3 days a week. She ended up dying in 1647.
Aw.
Father Pickard had died in 1642, so like way earlier, but his corpse was exhumed and burned. Also, when I was reading up on this, a lot of sources were just saying that he bewitched these nuns from the grave. Like he was already dead before their exorcism possession stuff was like happening. But I don't know. It's just kind of confusing. But yeah. So also Father Thomas Bull was imprisoned for 3 years, tortured, and was burned at the stake, tied to the recently exhumed body of Father Pickard in 1647. So they both fucking burned to death. And lastly, the remaining nuns of Louviers were sent away to other convents. But yeah, that's my story. It was kind of short and whatever, but hey, 1600s, that was so long ago. Like demonic possession, that shit is real. You guys better be careful out there. Don't go playing with no Ouija boards. I know our picture has us with an Ouija board, but I don't fuck with those. You guys have listened to my stories in a previous episode, so you know why I don't fuck with them.
You've also heard my story, which, again, like what, episode
Yeah,
5?
something like that.
Which also involves a Ouija board, so yeah. I've played with many of them, but they were all homemade.
Mine was
So
homemade
I
too,
don't
and
know.
I still will never fuck with that shit again. See,
Yeah.
I think,
I think it makes it scarier if you make it.
yeah, I guess so. But I do think, like, I do find Ouija boards, like beautiful, like just the way that they look, and
Oh
like
yeah. Yeah.
people,
Like the aesthetic.
yeah, it's just I think it's really like good looking, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I just wouldn't play with it, I guess.
Yeah. I have some scary stories with those.
Wait, you have more?
Well, I know someone who has a very scary story about it. I should try to get her to submit her story
Yes, please
or
do
like
that.
do an episode.
For
Yeah.
sure. Well, we'll save that for another time then if she sends that in to us. So, with that being said, you guys, we're going to wrap up our episode. So, we really hope you enjoyed it. If you have any ideas for us, let us know. I mean, there's tons out there that we have, but, we always appreciate more of them. So, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Everything is the same, Tale of Two Dead Girls, but our Twitter is TOTDG podcast. So follow us.
And again, if you have any recommendations or you want to, leave us a good review or, if you like our podcast, definitely leave us a review. But if you do have any suggestions or anything like that, feel free to message us. We love talking to our followers and our listeners. Don't feel free to reach out to us.
All right, guys. Well, have a good week or 2 weeks until we see you next time, and we'll meet you
6 feet under.